Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to WES's International Women in Engineering Day and We50 celebration. We've got a great few hours stacked up for you today as we celebrate our innovators and inventors. And I have to say, I'm so thrilled with the response so far. We are already trending #1 on Twitter. And as you know, INWED was created way back when in 2015, 7 years ago, by one of my predecessors, Dawn Bonfield. And since then, the Women's Engineering Society has been championing this great day every single year to try and shine a light on some of the amazing female role models and thus encourage more participation of women in engineering because it's so badly needed. And I have to say, there's some traction being seen. When it started, it was literally 9% representation. There was a conference saying 9% was not enough. And we're now at the dizzy heights of 16.5. So although the progress is great, we're just not quite there yet. And so today I'm hoping that we can celebrate our innovators and inventors, and we can actually get a little bit more of a spotlight shone on some of the breadth of the engineering diversity that can be had for careers. So please welcome Elizabeth Donnelly, who will now bring you into the events for today and pass on to some of our fabulous speakers. Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, Dawn. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And yes, we're really delighted that since about 20 to 11 this morning in the UK, INWED 22, excuse me, INWED 2022 is trending at #1 in the UK. This is a big marker. We use this as our webinar software, and you'll see that there's a chat box and a Q&A box. And in the we'd like you to type your questions in the Q&A box and then just have your conversation with everyone in the chat. Okay, we've got a really good session ahead for you. So we've got 3 sessions. We've got Innovation and Superfusion Tech with Interdisciplinary Power from Dr. Gillian Youngs. We have the future of vehicle, how one woman took on a vehicle theft and won. And we have a break where we will have the cards of the We50 will circulate for, so you've got time to grab some lunch. And then we're going to have a panel of 3 of our fabulous We50 winners. And then finally, we'll have supporting the next generation of inventors and innovators. So we should be completed by 2:30. So as Dawn said, this was founded by her predecessor, Dawn Bonfield, and it went from National Women in Engineering Day to International Women in Engineering Day. And this year, our theme is to imagine the future and the top 50 women in engineering inventors and innovators. And I'm delighted to introduce our first guest, Dr. Gillian Youngs, whose lifelong engagement with tech and engineering has covered many sectors, including simulation, civil aviation, media, creative and virtual industries, and applied research. She worked across all these sectors in her communications business in the 1980s as early digital transformation arrived. As an academic, she has been part of shaping the fields of globalization, digital economy, and feminist international relations, and involved in numerous collaborations and projects related to women and tech. She was honoured in 2020 to become a Fellow of WES as a digital innovator and in recognition of her contributions to supporting women in STEM. In the UK-wide assessment of university research, Research Excellence Framework 2021, she was part of leading a case study of more than a decade's applied research on superfusion, combining tech with creative arts, design and business approaches to drive the startup sector and the entrepreneurial economy. She is currently visiting Professor of Design and Digital Strategy at the University of Greenwich, and we're delighted to have her presentation now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Gillian Youngs and I'm very excited today to be part of this event celebrating International Women in Engineering Day. I'm a Fellow of the Women's Engineering Society and I'm also a visiting Professor of Design and Digital Strategy at the University of Greenwich. I want to use this time to talk to you a little bit about my take on innovation and where we are in the digital economy, and to share a little bit about my life and passion for engineering and tech, which come very much from a socio-technical approach. In other words, I'm interested in what technology can do for us as society and individuals, including in all the big challenges of inclusion, diversity, and sustainability, which is so much on our agenda today. My work foregrounds an approach that emphasizes creativity and that really moves away from a very technical approach, a very technological approach to digital transformation. And it uses the whole area of design thinking and the way in which that opens up technological processes to interrogation and questioning and user perspectives and purpose and values in ways that I think we really need and are very productive. I'm going to cover 3 areas in relationship to that and just say a little about each. The first is to reflect on where we are now at this really interesting and challenging point in time. And the second is to look at where I think we need to head. And the third is to talk a bit about my own digital timeline. And I'd like to stress before I start that through my whole life, I've had a fascination with engineering and tech. And even though I haven't taken a technologist route myself, I have worked alongside, engaged with, and known many brilliant engineers and technologists who've inspired me, both women and men. And supporting women in STEM has been a vital part of my path, particularly in relationship to digital economy, but also more broadly in the technological field. And it remains a great passion of mine going forward. So if we think about digital transformations right now, we've seen so much in the COVID era of digital awareness being raised, of new digital approaches that really seem to be transformative, particularly in areas of remoteness, virtual working, co-presence through digital technologies, different forms of flexibility associated with that. And I think there's a bigger understanding about what digital connectivity is. But some of the things we've been doing could have been done 20 years ago. And I'm intrigued by the questions about why that didn't happen and why it hasn't happened. And I think that story is about a lot more than the technology itself. It's very much about how society works, what we're ready for, and also making technological culture and possibilities much more widely part of life in a way that makes them meaningful to many more kinds of people. So on that basis, I would say that we've really only just begun in the area of digital transformation. And I would stress that that relates to inclusivity in a big way when we've seen the inequalities in internet access and the technologies to work online and to educate ourselves online that have been revealed by the COVID situation. And as I say, for me, the story going ahead is about much more than just tech. And I like to foreground in that the interdisciplinary trajectory of bringing creative approaches, including from the range of creative arts perspectives and strategies, together with design thinking, and I'll say a bit more about that in a minute, to actually allow us to open the black box of technology and really think through the social meanings and the possibilities that digital transformations allow. So I would argue that we're still very much in an industrial mindset, in an industrial economy mindset rather than a digital economy mindset. And I think we need to grasp all of the new awareness of the COVID era about the potential of digital technologies to allow us to work more flexibly, with more diverse experiences, both in co-presence and remotely, and of course, to travel much less when that can be avoided in meaningful ways. So I think that there's a whole world opened up by the digital transformations that have begun because of COVID, and we need to keep pushing that further and really realizing how slow, in a way, some digital transformations have been, and how they have not necessarily included all sections of society in ways that they could have done. So for me, this shift from an industrial to digital economy mindset is a holistic problem. It certainly starts with policy and policy frameworks and policy perspectives, and it also links the macro and micro, the macro of the larger economy and the global economy, the structures of that economy and how it works, right down to the micro level of the individual, and thinking about the way that individuals lead their lives and could do so more effectively. I believe that digital literacy is evidentially still a major issue for societies like our own. And I don't mean by that, however important it is, our understandings of technology, different kinds of software, the new advances in areas like artificial intelligence. But I also think it's about the social meanings behind all of those technological potential and the areas that they raise. So I think that digital literacy, again, is one of those areas that we have become aware of much more because of the COVID crisis and the need for much more remote enablement. But it's something that has a lot further to go, and there's a lot more public debate that could happen about it. A lot of that is around inclusion and diversity, and my own work with women in digital economy for many years has focused on the importance of women being leaders in digital technology and digital economy, in shaping all areas of it. And I would say that includes policies as much as practices. And the diversity issue, of course, is not just about women, it's about all sectors of society and all kinds of people and all ages being fully involved in digital transformations. And I think a lot of us are aware that there are major challenges there that have to be confronted. But diversity is about much more than just different people. It is about different ideas. And this is partly where my own work on innovation, for me, is something I want to spread the word about. Because I think innovation has in some ways been narrowed to technological innovation. And I think we are the poorer for it as society and as individuals. It's about a lot more than that. And I think we need the full perspective of academic expertise and research expertise and approaches and strategies, particularly, as I say, from creative arts and design thinking, to help us really have a much more diverse approach to what we think digital transformation is. And I would say much more public debate about that as well. And this includes the values within digital transformation. What are the values that we think are the most important within that? And how do we want them to be articulated through policy and in the marketplace and through other forms of social activity? If I look at my digital timeline, I sometimes can't believe it goes back 40 years. And it's a journey that I've actually been surprised by in some ways. It's not always gone the expected route, but it has always featured a big part for different kinds of technologies. And I find that as intriguing now, I think, as when I started out on the journey in my 20s. The 1980s for me were very much about the desktop PC revolution and what it did for me personally and what it did in my professional life. Thanks to bringing computing and printing onto my own individual desktop, I was able to launch an independent communications consultancy. I worked in the simulation and the civil aviation and the airport sectors, as well as the media, and became, at a very young age, an innovator and an entrepreneur. When we didn't have those words really in operation, we used to talk about being a small business, but I was very happy to be in that world and to be working in the tech industry. It was an exciting time, and aircraft simulation that I was engaged with was really breaking a lot of barriers. So that was a success for about a decade, and as I say, I really enjoyed it. In the 1990s, my route changed a little bit as I moved into my academic life, and I began research and teaching on the digital area and digital economy. And I began my work with women and ICTs, information and communication technologies, as we used to call them then, and was involved in a big UNESCO project, international project called Women on the Net, in which I did some of my first collaborative work digitally with women across the world. In 1999, I co-founded International Feminist Journal of Politics, which, as the title indicates, was very much an international venture. That would have been impossible without digital connectivity. The amount of travel that would have been involved to pull together the concept, an international team, an international board, would have been an incredible hurdle to overcome. But digital technology facilitated the connectivity and the depth of exchanges we needed to form a journal which has gone on from strength to strength and has continued to internationalize and develop its digital strategy to support that and to bring in more and more women from around the world and more expertise and different approaches to the whole area of feminist work. In the 2000s, I led one of the first MAs in the world on globalization and internet studies and started teaching international students at PhD level on areas related to digital economy, a whole range of areas, including in policy as well as business. And I'm very happy to say that many of my former students are digital leaders across the world, and I'm still in touch with some of them and find the work and the changes that they are driving forward fascinating. In the 2010s, I gained my professorship of digital economy. I believe I was the first woman in the UK to be appointed as a professor of digital economy, and that was initially to a national research chair in Wales. And then I moved on to the University of Brighton, the University of Westminster, and finally Canterbury Christ Church University, where I was a senior manager. As part of that work, I was involved with contributions to the agenda for Innovate UK's Digital Catapult, and also was academic lead for the Digital Catapult in Brighton. My work on the Digital Catapult in Brighton related to some of the funded research that I undertook, bringing together creative arts and design thinking with lean business approaches to develop entrepreneurs in and innovators in digital economy. That research really was the basis of my commitment to pushing forward the role that design thinking has and the role that more creative approaches have to helping us break down the barriers around technology, to connect it more to social and cultural issues, including those related to inequalities, and to come up with solutions that go beyond just how we apply the tech, but look at the holistic setting for technology, those it enables, those that it needs to enable better, and those that it needs to include more. And I was still emphasizing that I think women are part of that picture, as are other groups as well. And I continue to focus on building and understanding the way that design thinking's emphasis on values and process helps us to do that. And design has always been a central part of engineering. I would say less so probably of some of the digital transformative work that's gone on in digital tech. And I want to make sure that it's brought in center stage as a practical way of making technological solutions more socio-culturally grounded and socio-economically meaningful in an inclusive way. And I think that's a wider perspective on innovation than much of policy and practice has tended to have. In the 2010s and 2020s, my work included some high-level expert inputs on innovation at the European Commission related to the Horizon 2020 programme. I was involved there for more than 5 years and learned a great deal from being involved in high-level groups that brought policymakers, businesses, researchers, and practitioners of different kinds together. My research on creative arts and design as drivers of digital economy has continued, and a big part of that is also applied work in the startup sector, where I'm actually working alongside entrepreneurs and listening to their approaches and sharing my expertise and my particular perspectives on how to think differently and how to think in a more user-oriented way about the solutions that we're moving towards. My final slide is really just to give a list of some relevant resources, research reports and papers, all of which can be downloaded from my LinkedIn page. My publications go way beyond that, and the full list is on my LinkedIn page, but these are ones that will expand a bit more on the topics that I've mentioned here and illustrate how my concrete research and the research results support some of the arguments that I've presented here. I've also included a couple of my major academic publications at the bottom, which again go obviously into an enormous amount more detail on the areas I've covered. I'm continuing to drive my work forward, and I'm very pleased to say that it looks as if I will have lots of opportunities like this one to share my own expertise and work, but also to have new conversations about what digital transformation is and how we want to benefit from everything that we've learned during the COVID era, to think on a much bigger framework about how we can move forward in these areas. So I'm excited to be part of the conversation here today and in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Gillian. It was absolutely fascinating to think that you've been involved in tech and your digital timeline started in the 80s. I'm a little similar myself. My dad brought home his ZX80 in the 80s, and I think I had to fight my brothers for access to it, but I ended up getting into the internet in my job in the 90s. And it was only a move into engineering that stopped me continuing in IT. If you'd like to put on your camera and your microphone, Gillian, then we can see you. Terrific. Thank you. Now, we've had quite a few questions. So, so Gillian, question from Louise Harris. Are we reducing inclusivity by moving to a digital economy mindset?
I've seen the questions. They're great questions, and they're just huge issues. I want to just say a couple of things about that. The projects that I was involved in right in the 90s with women under the UNESCO umbrella was working with digital innovators across the world and in different communities. And what that showed me immediately was that digital inclusion is primarily about motivation, that we have to speak to people's lives and to their issues and what's important to them. And I also learned another lesson, that don't assume where digital innovation takes place. Don't assume who's involved in it. I've also worked with older groups of people and seen how they are very inventive about how they use digital technologies. So I think in policy, there needs to be much more emphasis on the inclusion issue and what motivates people to get engaged in digital technologies. And also there needs to be a lot more work, including in higher education, around knowledge issues and understanding the kinds of knowledge that are now accessible to all of us online and how we access those. A lot of my work has been about that. I'm sorry I didn't mention that in the talk. So this is not about digital natives. Digital nativeness can occur in all sorts of places that we wouldn't expect it. It's about an inclusive approach that is much more diverse. And it's about, as I said, extending an understanding of innovation way beyond just tech. And I think it is interesting that design approaches have been much more central to engineering actually than they have to digital transformation. And I really think there needs to be a lot more work on
that. Indeed. I've just discovered I can publish these questions online so people can see what you're answering. So this is Betty McCarthy, who's a WES member, who says a major problem is getting access to the internet for the elderly and then learning how to use it. And this ties in with your digital nativeness. Have you got any practical solutions? Because libraries don't have the best technology. And I genuinely feel myself that internet access really needs to be a little bit like water and electricity, because we live so much of our lives online.
Elizabeth, I'm completely where you are. Right from my early days of working on the internet, I could not understand how governments did not see it as a prime reason to make accessibility a public issue and a public affair. And I'm dealing with this. I've dealt with it all my career on the issue of access. I'm dealing with it right now in taking part in this seminar that I happen to be in South Wales, where I first have my research chair doing my work at the moment. And I've had to make the film for the seminar, and I'm in a hotel now on their high-speed access in Carmarthen because I can't get it where I am. So I deal with this in a practical way in my life and my work all the time. I think governments need to look at this a lot more, and I work with colleagues who particularly are focused on universal internet access. Has been a big project in Hastings in the south of England with an activist that I work with, showing how important and successful that can be and how it can be supported. I agree, Elizabeth, you're completely right. It is just like water, and we should be ensuring that it's accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. And I live in Ely in Cambridgeshire, and we don't have a very good mast because it's attached to the cathedral, which is on a hill. And so if you want to get internet access in Ely on your phone, you kind of have to find all the Wi-Fi passwords in local cafes. And a lot of this is to do with the cathedral being an historic monument and getting the diocese to agree. But I just think it's very important. And Derby, which is a brilliant technical city, has actually created free Wi-Fi for everybody. So as you're walking around, you can, it's fortunately a small city, you can just go onto the free Wi-Fi. And I'm loving the fact now that a lot of the Wi-Fi you get on trains and in other public areas, you don't even have to ask for the password, you've just got an access point. However, I do say to everybody, do make sure you're not doing your banking on these open networks, because you can be hijacked. So let me minimize that. So a terrific question here from a Sandringham student. How was the journey in becoming a woman in the engineering field with the consequences and achievement you faced?
I continue to say, particularly with my emphasis on creative arts and design, that I'm like the school child with the nose pressed up against the window at the sweet shop, basically. That's how it feels. But the fact that I have worked alongside brilliant inspirational engineers and digital technologists, including lots of women throughout, is what has sustained me. And that's why when I was honoured to be a fellow of WES, it was just such a wonderful moment in my life, because it just configured what I'm really committed to. And I think inspiration is a key for all of us. As I said, I'm not a technologist, but I work in a technical field. But you have to feel that no matter how much you seem you don't fit there, that your work is important and that you want to make your contribution. And I think that that's it. You look for the people who support you and you just keep going. I just have so much more to say about this in terms of the mentoring I do. But I just, it's a day-to-day issue for me, seeking inspiration all around me and just keeping going and trying to be part of the conversation.
That's terrific. I'm going to ask you one more question, because I'm still waiting to hear if our next presenter's made it for us. And that's, how do you see many companies requesting employees to be back in the office X amount of days a week, mainly in relation to it limiting access to certain jobs because of physical location, when we've connected with a much wider and diverse group of people while working remotely this last couple of years?
I think my work relates to these kinds of issues in terms of actually having a complex approach to the values that we are configuring in our demands on employees. So lots of us can see reasons to do remote working to do with the whole nature of our lives and the flexibility we need. And lots of us can see reasons to have some co-presence with colleagues. A lot of the state-of-the-art work on this says that the hybridity approach is the future, allowing much more flexibility, but it will mean new conversations about how work schedules are organised. And employers, I think, don't do a good job in just making demands. We need to make them value-driven and explain why we need to be working the way we need to be working. And we've had a lot of good coverage in COVID about how much more productive people have often been by being able to work from home. And I think all those issues need to come into play in us thinking through how we need to think about work in the future. I think it's a really exciting time for inclusion in this area, but only if we all have a very transparent and big conversation about it.
I agree, because we're still working remotely while we work out how we get back in our refurbished building. And I've now got people in the team of WES who are from all over the country, which is fantastic. And I have concerns for young people who might not be in the best environment in their flat share or at their home. And, you know, we've heard of people having to work on ironing boards and silliness like that. And I'm also concerned about young people in terms of, I think people learn how to be at work by being at work. And so some of those conversations that you have with different teams, you know, we're missing. But I do think we need to have the conversation. And I think we also have to remember that it's a very privileged group of usually office workers who could do this. If you're working for a supermarket, if you're working on a plane, if you're working in a factory, often you have to be physically present with people, and you don't get the opportunity to work from home as well.
I think those are great points, Elizabeth, and I think that this is going to be a huge agenda issue for unions as well as employers in the future, to actually get the right kind of conversations about this that do take note of inclusion issues as well.
That's fantastic. I'm afraid that's all we've got time to today, Gillian, but it's been really lovely to hear from you. There are some questions that I've published. If you want to respond to them in the chat, that would be terrific. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Ino Essien, who is the multi-award-winning founder and chief executive officer of Raytrack Limited, a vehicle tracking and recovery company that she established 15 years ago. She's the only licensed chief executive officer in her sector in Nigeria, and under her leadership, the company has consistently experienced steady and remarkable accomplishments and recorded an exceptionally high success rate. Lovely to see you again. We loved you so much at our annual conference. We invited you back for the INWED webinar, and it's fabulous to see you. And I'd love to hear what you've got to say about your project.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you. It's echoing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much for having me. I had a bit of network challenge. Okay, so before I start, I would like to say that I have a baby. Baby is here, and I apologize in advance for any noise she may make, but she's very good and won't distract us. And I've also got her biscuit here.
Sounds like you've got a real cheerleader of your own in the room.
All right. Okay, so it's great to be in the company of some of the best, the brightest, the bravest women in engineering, the inventors and innovators. It's such an honor. I love listening to the Prof's Gillian's speech. It was beautiful. So I'll be speaking about my lessons as an entrepreneur. And I'd like to give a little insight of how I got to where I am today. You know, growing up, I was always fascinated by young women who successfully ran their own businesses. I admired them greatly and I wanted to be them. When I graduated from the university, my natural inclination was towards this sector, business entrepreneurship. I had first tried my hands on perfumery before I had a car theft incident, which I experienced that led me to my current business, vehicle tracking and vehicle recovery. I went to visit a friend and unfortunately armed robbers came in there. My friend's vehicle was stolen. And I thought, how do you spend so much money trying to acquire a vehicle and just like that, somebody takes it away from you? So the helplessness of the situation got me thinking, and it occurred to me that there must be a way out of that helplessness. I saw a need and decided to find a solution, and that's how Raytrack was conceived in my mind. So I started my search. I did a lot of studying and I understood the intricacies of the business. I prepared myself emotionally and psychologically for this journey. I started small and I have stayed consistent. And you know that saying, consistency is harder when no one is watching. So you see, opportunities always present itself. Now, how you respond is what makes the difference. This is where the innovative and the inventive spirit kicks in. You know, we must take full advantage of every opportunity that comes. Everyone has the potential to do great things and impact their communities positively. And it's just a matter of passion, focus, and commitment. In the last 15 years of business, I have had challenges, and I still deal with challenges on a daily basis. But I have learned that there will always be challenges, and I have to remember why I started and keep going. I must not allow the challenge cloud the vision. Entrepreneurship can be tough, no doubt, and it's a long journey for many people. But with persistence and consistency comes fulfillment. Fulfillment in entrepreneurship is easier when you create a career that aligns with your values. This allows you to fashion a career or a life that directly aligns with your core values, like helping others, saving the environment, putting the family first, or providing security, as the case may be for me. So some of the lessons I have learned as an entrepreneur that have stood out. I have learned so many things have happened in the last 15 years, but some of the lessons that I have learned and have stood out for me. I've learned in business to own my power, my beauty, and my intelligence. To talk about my achievements. For everything I do, I speak about it, Accomplishment. For instance, the business for having stolen vehicles. Hello? Hello? Am I still here?
Yes, we can still hear you. It's just dropped out a little bit. It's great. Keep going. Yes, Ino,
Okay.
can you hear us?
Okay, can I go on?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Mama was saying, I was giving an instance about business for me. I was talking about sharing your accomplishments and speaking about your accomplishments. And I was saying that recovering stolen vehicles is one of the biggest things that happens to us. That's why we're in business. So whenever we recover vehicles within and outside the Nigerian boundaries, it's always a high point for me and members of my organization. And it really gladdens our hearts. The joy is indescribable. The jubilation that accompanies every vehicle recovery, the joy on the faces of the owners of the vehicle is priceless. This satisfaction and the joy on their faces makes it's worth every effort for my team and I. And when this happens, I speak about it so loudly. Am I still there?
Yes, we can see you. There's just two of you. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. So I've also learned, and one of the things I've learned is to get out of my own way. Fear is a great inhibition. And you'll be amazed at the things within and outside the Nigerian boundaries. It's always entrepreneurship has given me greater self-confidence. Nothing boosts your confidence more than battling self-doubt about a business idea and then coming out on top of it. You say, this is what I'm going to do. You have it all planned out, and then you make a success out of it. Yes, entrepreneurship is difficult. Starting small is hard. Growing a business is hard. Running a business is also hard. And having to do this day in and day out can be tiresome. And that's why it's important to celebrate the things you do if you're not afraid. Rejoice over the first customer, the first transaction you're not afraid. Revel in the moment of pushing through 3 months in business, 1 year in business, 5 years in business. Recognizing those small victories can boost your morale and provide a surge of energy. They provide you with the motivation to keep going and may alleviate the stress that could drag you down. I've learned to clap for myself for every milestone I achieve, whether it's my first sale or it's my 100th sale. I've learned to celebrate the little successes and milestones. Be patient, stay focused, stay committed, eyes on the prize. You're the best always. Remember that. I never forget that. I say that to myself. Chasing your dreams. You should chase your dreams and be unapologetical about it. And the awesome thing about failure is that it is only temporary. So whatever you do, if you start up and something doesn't go right, it's just a temporary situation. You need to soldier on, pull ahead. Let me round off by saying that your daily habits determine your future. And make sure to do the things that take you closer towards your dream. And when you get to where you're going, turn around and help her too. Because there was a time not long ago when she was you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ino. We have a little bit of an issue in that you're in twice, which is why we've heard doubling up of the microphone, but I think we've resolved that now.
Okay.
I think you are so inspiring, that the fact that you had your car stolen really, helped you to get this business off the ground and be so successful. We've got some questions here, so I'm going to put one up here. So how was the journey in becoming a woman in the, oh, sorry, no, that was the one we had for somebody else. I beg your pardon. Let me mark that as answered. And I'll archive that one as well. Here we go. You have such a positive attitude. I was wondering what makes you so motivated to carry on. And that's from a Sandringham student.
I didn't get the end of the question, the last bit.
Oh, what motivates you? What makes you so motivated to carry on being positive?
Well, I want to be able to, I started off by saying that I used to admire women who were in business and I wanted to be like them. So I want to be able to leave my name, leave my mark in the sands of time and have the younger people make reference to me. That this is what she did. She took on a field that no other woman did and she succeeded in it. So those are the things that keep me going.
That's fantastic. And lots of chat about the over talking, but I'm sorry, it's a bit of a technical issue. As an aspiring female engineer, do you have any tips from me, from another Sandringham student?
Yes, why not? It's something you love to do. I love playing in this field. This field is seemingly seen as a male-dominated field, so you need to double up. You need to be able to prove yourself. You need to be able to do better. And no matter the kind of challenges that come your way, you need to remember why you have decided to be a female engineer and keep going. Don't let those challenges cloud the vision.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to work out. I had a great question. I don't know what's happened. Somebody was saying, how do you start out if you've got no resources?
How do you?
Yeah, here we go. Found it here. How do you start out if you don't have money or resources? From Charlotte Hattersley.
Well, that's similar to my story. When I started the business, after I graduated from school, I hadn't worked. What people usually do is they work for some years, they're able to save money and then put it in to start a business. In my own case, I didn't have work experience and I didn't have money set aside from the years of working because I had never worked before. But I had a vision, I had a dream, I had a picture of what I wanted to do, and I knew it was doable. So I started to market the business. I started to speak to potential clients. I did it. It's like sowing seeds in the ground. You sow as many seeds on the ground, and then one day one will eventually germinate if you keep watering it. So I started small, got my first client. It was the money I got from my first client basically that I put back into the business. So for every time I got in money, I put it back into the business. So my story is similar to yours, Charlotte. I had nothing, but but my dream, my vision, what I wanted, and that was what I ran with.
I think that's brilliant. And I also I use this analogy a lot with the WES team. If the Wright brothers had realised that they would have to put toilets, kitchens and beds into aeroplanes, they would never have got off the ground. So sometimes it's a case of let's get the plane off the ground and then we can do all the add-ons later. So if you just start with something simple and then you can make it bigger and add on as you want, which is brilliant.
Yes, start with what you have and start where you are.
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. It's funny because we're trying to add another line of business into what we do. And at some point, the fear creeps in. You would wonder that I've been in business for 15 years. Why am I afraid? But the fear creeps in. And I think that fear is normal, you know, but being able to say, no, I'm not going to allow this fear come my way, because there's so many things we will do if we were not afraid.
Exactly. And I mean, I have another phrase I like, which is feel the fear and do it anyway, because what we're frightened of is the unknown. That, you know, I'm going to do something. What if it fails? Well, if it fails, we pick ourselves up and we start again, or we learn.
Exactly.
You know, so sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So it says, how do you manage to balance family life, looking after the children and your business?
I'm still juggling it. I'm doing it anyway. I'm juggling. I mean, like I started by saying I have my baby right here with me. I just try to. I have no tips. I can't give you the tip because I'm a new mom. But I just try to balance it all out. Let there be a balance, because I have to be here and I also have to look after my baby. I just balance it all out. I also have family that also support, so I just balance it all out.
And I think that's right. I think, you know, there's another phrase: if you want something done, ask a busy woman, because we seem to find the ability to fix things in and to add other things to it. And I have a brilliant question here. If we made you president of Nigeria for one day, what action would you take to improve female representation in engineering and business in general?
I'm sorry, you're echoing. What action would you take to improve female representation in engineering?
There's some feedback here.
Okay, you know, a lot of am I still there?
Yes, you are. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So a lot of businesses, a lot of startup businesses have the same similar struggle: finance. People don't have the capital, don't have the money to start. I think that will probably be my priority, trying to ensure, as the president, you know, that there is startup capital available for serious businesses, startup capital available for anybody who wants to go into the business, and then make the business a level playing field, because it's tough going into business. So my focus will probably be on the startup capital being available to everybody.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I have a final question here. How did you become so confident and come out of that zone? Again, from Charlotte Hattersley.
Charlotte, thank you for your second question. I guess as the days and as the years go by, as I get to speak at more events, as I have more opportunities, I guess that's how the confidence gets brushed up, you know. And then if you remember, in the course of my discussion, I was saying that if you have a plan and then it all comes out well, you have a business plan in your head and it comes out successful, I mean, that alone boost your confidence. So I know what the business I'm in. I know the service I'm providing. I know how it is, how successful it is, and I speak with that confidence.
I agree, and I think a lot of it's about self-belief as well. And some of us don't always have backgrounds where we were believed and promoted by our families. And I think sometimes you have to know yourself, you know your own worth, and build on your own confidence. And there are times, I mean, I'm a very confident woman, you're very confident, but there are times when I'm thinking I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. And it's, you know, I'm in my 50s now. So I think, you know, it's, again, feel the fear, do it anyway. Just go out there. And the more you do it, the easier it will be. Ino, it's been absolutely fantastic to listen to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on your baby and your company.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
it's been a big pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Now, from our poll, which is still open, over 308 people are from Europe, 8 from North America, 3 from South America, 2 from Australasia, 19 from Africa, 1 from Antarctica, I genuinely hope that's true, and 26 from Asia. And somebody's compiled a list of countries. We've got Australia, Bahrain, Egypt, France, Greece, India, Ireland, Kenya, Lesotho, Morocco, Nigeria, Pakistan, Qatar, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, USA, and Yemen. And that's just a few that were taken at that point, which was at about 12:42 earlier today, which is brilliant. And I'm so delighted because we made a deliberate decision, even though we're having more in-person events, that we would continue now with this event as a global webinar, because it does enable so many more people from all around the world to join us. So thank you very much. So wonderful, wonderful things. We are about to go and have a break for half an hour, when we'll be joined by a 3-person panel from our top 50 women in engineering. I want to mention the Men as Allies Award, which is for a man who helps women into engineering, and the Amy Johnson Inspiration Award for a man or woman who helps women into engineering. You can find applications on our website, on our front page. You can join there. You'll have to create an account in something called Zealous. And also we have opened up the Karen Burt Memorial Award to the professional engineering institutions who can nominate their best newly chartered woman. So if you have been chartered since July 2021 and and you haven't heard from your organisation, give them a nudge and say you would want to be nominated for the Karen Burt Award, and they can get in touch with us at membership@wes.org.uk, and we will respond to all their queries. So we're going to do a half-hour break, and there'll be a carousel of the top 50 women in engineering, and each slide will be on for about 15 seconds, which is plenty of time to read their citations, and we'll go through it twice, and hopefully by the time we come to the end of that will then be time for our panel. And you can also check out the Guardian.com, where we've taken over the front page for the day, and there's a fabulous article with all of the citations and images of all of our top 50 women in engineering, also sponsored by Ball Corporation. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome back to the INWED 2022 Global Webinar. We are still trending at #1 in the United Kingdom, which we've been doing since 11:15 this morning, and I'm feeling really, really excited. Congratulations to all of the WE50 winners, and I am delighted that we are going to be joined by 3 winners, Sophie Morse, Divya Banderi, and hopefully, if we can find her, Yumna Mohammed from Mayana Naturals Limited. And Divya was here, but she's now turned off her camera. Aha, she's here. Excellent. Oh, Divya, we've got you on twice now. So let me take one of you off. Yep, I've taken your other one off. Okay. I think what we're probably going to do is we're going to start, and then hopefully you, Mark, can join us very, very shortly. So you will have seen their faces in the presentation we were just showing. Today we have Sophie Morse, a research fellow at Imperial College London. After completing her PhD in biomedical engineering, Sophie Morse was awarded a 4-year fellowship to start a research group. She is currently working on improving a non-invasive technology that allows drugs into the brain using focused ultrasound and microbubbles. And by engineering new ultrasound sequences, Morse has overcome the challenge of delivering drugs across the blood-brain barrier, which is just awesome. Well done, Sophie. Very, very well done on such a fantastic thing. And our other panelist so far is Divya, I hope I spelled it, Divya Banderi, who is a senior engineer at Arup. And Divya Banderi had led the creation of the National Highways Travel Demand Management Programme to maximise road capacity without building new infrastructures. And her work has informed the National Highways Net Zero Plan, shaped strategy, and is currently being considered for inclusion in the design manual for road and bridges as a mandatory standard. Again, amazing, so young and yet making really, really big impacts in national infrastructure. And I am going to just mention our final panelist because she is amazing and I hope she will be able to join us. And that's Yumna Mohammed, who became a Royal Academy of Engineering Fellow 2020 and runs Mayana Naturals. Black women with textured hair are frequently encouraged to straighten it to appear more professional. And Yumna Mohammed has said this. So countering this push for conformity, she created the Nifasi Deluxe Detangling Comb, which allows the simultaneous detangling and conditioning of hair in a pain-free manner, empowering Black women to be their true selves. And Yunma, you're here. Fantastic. And I am so thrilled that you won one of our WE50 awards because I get all the nominations, so I get to read them all first. And I read about Yunma's invention, and I was just thinking of all those little Black girls who've probably sat in their mum's laps and had their hair pulled, you know, for nearly an hour of time on a Sunday and thinking, oh God. And I think you could be revolutionizing their experience, as well as obviously older women. But I think when you're older, you kind of get used to somebody yanking on your hair. So I think this is just amazing. And I'm really, really excited and delighted to have you all 3 here. You join, I think this is our 6th or 7th year of the top 50 women in engineering. And we say once you've won one, you can't win another one. Because we want to show as many as we can. So there are 300 women engineers in the UK who've won a WE50 award. And I'm so excited that once again, we had a fantastic field of nominees and we have some brilliant winners. And I must say, I literally had a couple of people email me afterwards and say, why didn't I win? And they gave me all of their details. And I'm like, well, you are very impressive, but the whole theme was invention and innovation. And you talked about what your career and your positions. You didn't tell me what you'd invented or innovated. And we kind of needed to know so that we could say, yeah, that's pretty good. We'll recognize that. And also we had 3 standards this year. We used to have 2, but since 2020, we've had 3. One, you've got to have fulfilled the criteria. So you've got to be an inventor or an innovator this year. And secondly, you've also got to have supported women in engineering. So a lot of women have done brilliant things, but then they don't talk about how they've supported other women. So all of our 50 winners have supported other women. And also this year we did look at sustainability. And this is because in 2020 we had sustainability as our theme, and we really wanted to showcase the fact that a lot of the innovations and the inventions that are coming through are actually helping us in this very dangerous world of climate change. So I'm very excited to see you all. I've got some questions. So I just want to say, what does winning this award mean to you? And should we start with Sophie, please?
It means a lot, actually. I've spent the last 24 hours being really sort of emotional and sort of a bit, really, like sort of, I don't know, a bit strange, different. I think it just makes me feel very proud for everyone who's helped me get here. And I'm really happy that all the really hard work, the time, the passion that I've put into developing the technology that I've been working on, but also encouraging women to join engineering, but also try and change it so that we can make it so that women feel comfortable in this field, and to have that all recognised by this award is just amazing. I'm really, really delighted.
And Divya, what does winning the WE50 mean to you?
To be honest, I was really surprised I won. It's just one of those things you don't really think to enter until sort of my line manager was like, I think you'd make a really good fit for this. So it just goes to show, like, yeah, I think a lot of people will probably resonate with underselling themselves. But honestly, I'm extremely honoured to be recognised for the achievements. It's such a prestigious award. And what I really like about this award is that it strives for diversity, like not only in gender, but much wider. So including age, ethnicity, and all the way down to professional expertise. And I honestly just hope that my story can inspire other women in engineering, because I wish I had a female role model when I was younger. And it probably took me until maybe 4 or 5 years into work till I found somebody that I really gelled with, I looked up to. And then after I met that female role model, I feel like she just really helped accelerate all the achievements that I had.
I think that's so true. And we have a very wide panel of judges, so every nomination gets judged twice, and all they see is your first name and your 400 words. They don't know anything else about you until we unblind it, which is fantastic. Excuse me. And it turns out that roughly every year, about half of our applicants come from women in their very early part of their careers, and then another quarter come from mid-career and quarter come from senior career. And so I'm always astonished that when we unblind it and find out who's won, that roughly half of the winners are in the early part of their career, and then a quarter in mid-career and a quarter senior. So obviously we're doing the right thing in how we're judging it. And Yunma, it's lovely to see you here. What does winning this award mean to you?
Good afternoon, everyone. So sorry for being late. Life has been extremely eventful, as it will be with entrepreneurship. So winning feels really, really nice. For the main reason is actually it's not easy to actually invent something. And right now, the process of bringing it to market is extremely, extremely difficult. It's a proper roller coaster. I'm sure lots of the winner will recognize that. And so actually winning just feels nice, because it means even if I'm struggling right now, people understand the importance of the invention, and they see the value that it will bring, especially to the lives of young little girls, as you say. Because just like myself, as an adult, you get used to caring for your hair and it being painful. But when you see a little girl, there is something different that actually really does touch you as an adult. So it's just really nice to know that people see the efforts behind the invention, despite the challenges of entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And to help you get your innovation along, I'm putting your website into the chat, because they're still taking pre-orders. And I think if anyone has textured hair maybe across the world, if you want to pre-order one of these, and this will help you might get this fantastic invention off the ground. So I'm putting that in the chat as well. And in fact, I was at a lunch at the Royal Academy of Engineering on Tuesday. We was online because we've got travel disruption in London, and you were mentioned as one of the fellows from 2020 in terms of the women innovators and inventors. So I'm really excited that we've been able to support you again. Have you got any top tips for women inventors? I'm going to talk to you, Uma, because you saw this problem. You probably experienced it from being a very little girl, of having your hair pulled by your auntie or your mum or whatever. And you thought, I've got to do something about this. So how did you work out what was needed? And because it's a combined brush and conditioning thing, I understand. So how did you work that out? And what tips do you have for the future for other young entrepreneurs out there?
The way things happen is really simple sometimes. So my mom used to do this thing when she did my hair, where she would always have a glass of water next to her when she's doing my hair, and she will dip the comb in the water to do my hair. So it's really much as simple as that, starting, the idea when it came from. And I just noticed that it made things much more easier. So years after working in the field of printing and coating, of course, you just think of merging the two. I will say to an innovator or somebody who would like to innovate or invent, oh, the battery is really low. Sorry, I thought that plugged in.
Please plug in. We don't want to lose you.
This plugged in, and it's plugged in. So I don't know why it's...
We're very lucky, because up until Tuesday, my internet kept dropping out every 10 minutes, and I was really worried.
Maybe I'll try another one.
And we got the engineers around, and they discovered the wiring near our house.
So sorry about this. So I was saying, what I will say to an inventor, hopefully it's charged fantastic, that plug is not working, is actually to be creative, in the sense that we have different influences. We have our science, we have our technology, but let's not forget to actually use our own personal experiences, because who will have thought that printing and coating and hair could come along to actually invent something like this? So that's all I will say. Just, go look around. Don't just focus on the science. There is also a lot of different problems in different simple areas, and just kind of like merge all of that creativity together.
Brilliant, thank you. Sophie, the blood-brain barrier, as we know, it's a barrier, and it's there for a reason. And things change, so that the left hemisphere covers the right side of your body. So how have you managed to get this technology? Because it's obviously very important to get some of these drugs across that barrier.
Yeah, so it's actually it's a combination of using sound and bubbles. But the bubbles are tiny, so small that you can't even see them. And if you put them into your blood vessels and focus the sound waves really, really in a targeted way, so we're talking about focusing it onto like millimeters of your brain, when the bubbles arrive to that region where the ultrasound is focused onto, they'll oscillate inside your blood vessels, and they open the barrier. And so your drugs can then go into the brain. But it's a lot about sort of working out how to fire these ultrasound pulses to get those bubbles to do exactly what you want them to do. Because obviously, if you go a bit too far one way or the other, then you can get stuff that you don't want. But yeah, so that's been a lot of the sort of engineering part of it.
And what what tips would you have for someone who's possibly interested in the science and the engineering of it?
I'd say that because it involves so many different fields and techniques, like it's not just engineering, it's sort of medicine, biology, but chemistry, pharmacokinetics, all of that. For me, it's been really important to learn how to sort of prioritize, say no to certain things, talking to as many people as possible, and trying to do more of what one enjoys and less of what one doesn't, basically, in that pathway.
I think so, and that collaboration is really important, because you've got the science, you've got the biology, you've got medicine, and the technology of ultrasound, and Divya as well. When you're doing the national road management strategy, I imagine you didn't just sit there on your own and devise this. Tell us more about your innovation.
No, I think a lot of it is exactly that. It's about talking to everyone. So I come from a consulting background. So it's about talking to not only your client with what they want and what they need, but also talking to colleagues who have done similar projects, etc. And that helps you identify, that's a problem, but you could stick to just a problem, or you could go beyond, recognizing that there are other challenges. And often what you find is that people are really keen to solve these challenges. They just didn't know they existed in the first place. So I really echo that. The more people you talk to, the broader your network, etc., just the more laterally you can think, and you'll be so surprised about the problems that various people face. And sometimes there's problems you haven't even thought of. And also, coming with problems, it comes with a lot of solutions. So I've often found the best ideas I've had is when I'm talking to non-engineers too. So talking to other people, from comms, from other completely different disciplines, and you just find that they really help you think of the world and see it in a different way. And it's almost a way that you'd never thought of. And that's why it resonates with this innovators and invention theory theme so much, because it's just so diverse. And the more you can kind of spread yourself out, I think the better the ideas, the better the innovation, and the more chances we basically have of solving a lot of the problems that we're currently facing.
Oh, I definitely agree. And I think one of the best ways you can learn your own subject is to explain it to a 3-year-old or a 10-year-old, maybe. 3-year-olds might be too little. But even then, trying to say, what do you do? Well, I help lots of women try and become engineers. Is kind of how I explain it to a 3-year-old. It's a little bit more complicated to a 10-year-old. It does help you understand. And it's because you don't want to use all of that jargon. Now, we know that working in teams of diverse people, whether that's men and women, people from underrepresented ethnicities, with disabilities, gay people, and people from all over the world, we get better ideas. So you might, you've come from the African continent to Europe. How have you found the differences in communication, and how has that benefited your invention and innovation?
The difference in communication, that's a really, really interesting question. I think the one thing that is very prominent in African culture is the importance of our elders, and valuing them. And so regarding the, and also when it's come to the meaning of hair, especially into the African continent, is something that women get together to actually do. There is no hairdressers. Like it's only now that people are starting to actually have hairdressers. So because of that, for me, this product was really a community thing. So it's really the way it's impacted that energy and my African culture really impacted the research, in the sense that even if it was because it was a product in this case, and I wanted to kind of keep that ethos of the community and the woman and the meaning of hair that can mean so many different things to different people. It's impacted the invention as such, as in the process. I work with women every single time, and communication has been so important because I wanted to have something that had value, but also they had a great experience. Because the brand is called Nafasi, because in Swahili, Nafasi means having a good time and having free time. So really that whole thing about getting women together, asking their point of view, do you like it? How does it feel? That's really what actually influenced the invention when it's come to my African culture.
Yeah, and I imagine that as doing the hair together is probably quite a cultural, communal thing. I remember somebody said I think they're slightly wrong, but somebody said women in places where they have to go and get water from a well, they don't want to have running water because then they don't have the community. And I'm like, well, come off it. Actually, they may like the community, but who really wants to walk miles to a well, and water's very heavy. So I think it's important to emphasize the community nature of it, and that there are times when you'll be communal and be brushing each other's hair. But equally, you've got 8 o'clock on a Monday and somebody's got to get to school and she needs her hair done. You're going to want to have it done very quickly. So in terms of diversity as well, Divya, you're from a South Asian heritage, and how do you feel that brings to your work in the UK?
I'm a first generation, so I was born here, but my parents weren't. So I've definitely felt the barrier between the two. And I could just say, when I was younger, it was actually my dad who encouraged me to get into sort of engineering. And it was kind of like, oh, what's that? I didn't really know what that is. And then did it. And actually, I found when I started asking people around, there wasn't that many people who did it. So I didn't really know who to ask. And actually, I had to, instead of sort of reaching out to family and friends, it got to a point where I was reaching out to Google to try and understand what would it entail, what would it be. And I just wish that I had people kind of that I could look up to from a similar background, just understand, you know, how did you do uni? How do you do work? How does it fit today, day to day with cultural things, etc. And I just hope that, yeah, I can be a role model for other people. And one of the things that I have definitely tried to do is give back to the local community. So where I live is predominantly sort of South Asian, and we have local careers fairs, etc. Always try and get involved and share my story, because I just think people genuinely don't know what they can do. And once you explain to them, oh, you know, on a day-to-day basis, actually, this is what I do, they'll be like, oh, really? I quite enjoyed this subject at school. I think I could fit into that kind of a culture. And I definitely echo with the respect your elders, etc. I just remember, I think when I picked engineering, everybody was like, oh, but you're female. How can you be an engineer? And I was just, honestly, I was so lucky, because both of my parents were just like, that has nothing to do with anything. They're like, it's a job. Like, you'll do it. As long as you're happy and you're passionate about it, you'll succeed. And I'm so glad I listened to them rather than everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, we talk about 16.5% of all engineers are women, which is the highest number we've had in the 103 years. It's our 103rd birthday of WES today that we've been in existence. But that literally represents over 939,000 women. So it's nearly 1 million women in engineering. So in terms of other careers, it's not, it's actually a lot more. I think the difficulty is that because it's so male dominated, people don't expect women to go into it, and therefore there are kind of barriers that you might have that the men don't have anything. So Sophie, in your experience, did you approach your role through science, and was that easier, or did you say I want to do engineering?
No, I a bit like Dira, I did not know what engineering was. It wasn't even an option. It wasn't on the table. And I think even, at least in my community, it was very much, oh, you're a girl, science, maths, not really, you know, it's not going to be your thing. And it just took one person, one of my parents' friends from Denmark, so from a completely different environment, to say, oh, you're really good at maths and science and physics, you should be an engineer, you could be an amazing female engineer. And I thought, oh, I'll look that up. And I did, and I thought, okay, this actually matches really well. And I gave it a go, thinking, you know, maybe this works, maybe this doesn't, but it was the best choice I ever made, I think.
Oh, and I'm so excited to see you all so enthusiastic, because I was growing up in the 80s, and there definitely weren't as many women in engineering, and engineering was still seen as heavy duty and oily, and unfortunately still has that that kind of perception, which is partly why we asked you all to pose in your workwear, because we wanted to show 50 women who weren't all going to be in PPE, hard hats and helmets, and it was really great to see that a lot of you, you know, you're wearing clothes that I wear or other women would wear in the workforce. And so as inventors and innovators, I appreciate you, Mo, you're probably still working on your current project because you've patented it and you want to get it on the market. But Divya and Sophie, are you still working on your project, or have you got something else lined up that you're interested in as well? Divya.
Yes, so some of the projects that I work with that I put on the application, although I might not be an active member of the team, I'm definitely there in the periphery, constantly asking about updates and how everything is going, because I'm a big believer of always trying something new in order to sort of expand your skill set. So I do rotate quite a lot. And in terms of what I'm working on next, is continuing to advise sort of large infrastructure clients, so including Network Rail, National Highways, etc., on basically how to adapt their networks for the future in order to deliver against sustainability. We all know about sort of severe weather, etc., but also delivering on resilient outcomes so that we can ensure that life isn't as disrupted as we move ahead into changing times. And then with that, I'm also within the company that I work in, also helping to shift sort of client mindsets as well, from moving away from this short-term delivery and starting to think proactively into the long term, so that we can create a more sustainable and resilient sort of world and future for everyone else. And along with that, I quite like to do sort of non-profit work as well. So working on projects that are sort of helping embed equitable play for little children across the world, because there's a global play crisis at the moment as well.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I think, you know, we're very lucky in the West in that we've, I think since the Victorians, you know, who created childhood, that we've, you know, we're allowing play and for young people to go out and enjoy being young. But I still see in other communities and cultures that, you know, this isn't as effective as it could be. So Sophie, what are you working on? Are you still doing your ultrasound and microbubbles?
Sort of, but I'm starting my own group in October. I'm really excited, and I'm going to be working on developing a slightly different technology to stimulate cells inside of our brain in a completely non-invasive way with the sound. And this is mainly for sort of waking up those cells that are not working so well when you age or when you have a certain disease, and trying to get them stimulated and back working how they used to work. So that's the idea. Okay,
and I'm going to ask you. I appreciate you're working on your enjoyment, your community hair product. Are you inspired to do something more once you've got this off the ground?
Oh, the story is, let's say I'm a big dreamer. So, and I've actually always loved to be creative and play in the lab. So what I used to do when I was a staff member in Swansea University, I would take the Friday afternoon and go in the lab and just have fun, you know, speaking about, you know, creativity. And so what I would love to be in a couple of years is actually still be in the business, but actually shift it into the R&D aspect of things, to be able to tap into my creativity and the innovation aspect that I very, very do much enjoy. Because I think very much, especially with textured hair, there hasn't been much research into the field. So I think there will be so much, you know, as a scientist and somebody who actually love to just, you know, look at small details of things and have fun. So that's where I would love to be. So I'm hoping that there are more little ideas in this mind of mine. So yeah.
Okay, now I could sit here and ask you so many more questions, but I do want to ask you one from the audience, because we've only got a few more minutes. So as female engineers, do you experience bias or inequality in your workplaces? And if so, how do you manage it? From Michelle Wickenden. Divya, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate that the company I work in, I haven't experienced it in a direct way, but I'm fully aware of it being sort of subconscious bias, etc. And I think the way to sort of address it for me is, well, I think one of the things I suffer from is like imposter syndrome. I never think I'm good enough. I won't apply for something unless, like, pretty much like this would, unless I meet every single criteria. And I have been fortunate enough to find not only female mentors, but also male mentors who have helped me realize that actually, do you know what, if you meet 60% and the key is being passionate and curious to learn, you will go really, really far. And that's what I've definitely sort of embraced. So I often take up opportunities that scare the living daylights out of me, but I know that I've got people that I can go to for advice, etc., and speak openly about, you know, this is a problem, this is a challenge, how do I do it, etc. And I think inequality in the workplace still does exist. There's so much more that needs to be done. And sort of this award and the Women in Engineering Society, like, this is exactly what we need, a lot more of this to raise awareness so that we can start addressing these problems.
Brilliant. And Sophie, have you experienced bias or inequality in your workplace?
Yes. I mean, yeah, in many different aspects. I think the way I deal with it, or at least what I'm trying to do now, is to communicate how I feel about certain situations in a very calm and trying to be helpful way, and encouraging other people to express how they feel about certain situations and how some things are just not okay for certain people. And I think slowly, if more of us did that, then hopefully we could shift towards less of this happening.
I think so, yes. And Yumna?
Well, you know, when people speak about bias, I am very lucky also that I've never been in a situation that it was very avert. I would say my challenge was mostly actually cultural differences, being more of an ethnic minority, although even if I have a huge European influence because I'm French, but you know, there is lots of different dynamics that comes along that made it harder for me to actually sometimes feel part of the group. Even if you take people individually, I had amazing relationship, but that becomes really important, especially as your career evolves. You know, when you're a junior is not so much of a challenge because we all know that, you know, we found out about the next position, the next job, you know, when, you know, we are out and having a drink. When you don't drink, you know, so you're not going to stay at the networking event so much. So the challenge for me were more actually into that aspect of the cultural differences. And but I would say the way forward for me has been in a way that it happened in a very natural way, has been sponsorship. I have people who have believed in me even before I myself actually saw actually my potential. And those people have opened doors for me, have invited in meetings that I would have never been able to just, you know, enter if it were just for myself. So I think, you know, really relying on those different things, not only the mentorship aspect of it, but actually sponsorship where somebody will walk your hand into a meeting and introduce you to the people that can have leverage into your career. So that's pretty much has been my personal experiences, but very lucky again to say that I had very soon lots of sponsors that came along to actually open doors for me.
I think that's so right, that you having somebody take you by the hand and say, you know, hello, this is Divya, this is Sophie, this is Yuma, because then a number of times as women we've kind of hovered outside rooms and waited to be invited. And when I was 14, we had a computer club at school, and I went there at break time, and there were 4 boys in there and 1 male teacher. And this was a school that had been girls only 2 years before, so there weren't very many boys in the school. I stood there for 20 minutes, not brave enough to go in, and nobody looked up, nobody saw me, and so I never went back. I mean, goodness knows how I actually managed to have an IT career, but I persevered in other ways. And I think, again, that cultural thing, because some people, a lot of British culture certainly is about drinking after work, or it used to be before the pandemic. And some people don't drink, or they don't want to drink as much, or, you know, they don't want to drink on a Thursday, for example. And I think, you know, that whole thing, that I think women have gone along with this for a long time, because we felt we've had to be amongst the boys, you know, in order to mingle. And I think that we should start emphasizing how we want to I mean, I was in a brand new restaurant in where I live, and it was very brightly lit and really nice, beautiful colours. And there were just lots of women in there. And I thought, this actually feels like a safe space rather than some of the pubs. And I don't get me wrong, I love the pubs, but they felt very dark and enclosed and not necessarily as bright and safe. And I think we're still waiting for our next panelist. So somebody said, well, engineering such large bandwidth, how do you educate every aspect to the younger generation to allow them to pick a stream they're going to enjoy? And I'm going to abuse my right as chair by saying engineering is amazing, and it covers so many things, from electrics, water, infrastructure projects, medical situations, you know, the hairbrush you've got in your hand, everything. If you look around your room right now, I can guarantee somebody's engineered it. And I like to think of engineering as collaboration, teamwork, and problem solving. So if you anything that you can put all those 3 things into are great. And people ask me, how do you advise people to do what they're going to enjoy? And I think we ask the wrong question of young people. We say, what do you want to be, or what do you want to do when you grow up? And so often these children don't know what's available, or what they're good at, or what they might be. And I believe many jobs that they're going to be doing in 10, 20 years don't exist yet, because we're continually creating and innovating. You know, when I was leaving school, you could be a draftsperson, and that would involve pen and paper. And now, of course, you do it all on computer. So I've always advised that you do 3 spider diagrams, mind maps, whatever you like to call them. One is all the stuff that you're good at, because generally you'll find the stuff that you're good at, not everyone is as good as you are. The stuff you find easy, do another one, stuff you find easy. And often you'll find the stuff that you're good at, you find easy, and you're good at it because you find it easy and they overlap. And then the things that you enjoy. And then when you finish these 3 mind maps, if you look at them together, you should see something really leap out, even if it's like, oh, I didn't know that art was something that I'm good at, and I'm terrible at art, I must say. Art and I'm good at, and I find it easy, but maybe I don't enjoy it. But actually, art can take you into product design, or it may be that you like fixing things with your hands, and you don't want to go to university. Well, maybe you want to go and do an apprenticeship, hands-on mechanical engineering apprenticeship. And I think if we can pull these 3 areas and we ask kids, you know, what are you good at? What do you find easy? What do you enjoy? We should find an interface in that. And so tell me, Sophie, how do you think we can get kids to pick a stream of engineering they're going to enjoy?
I think that's a tricky question. I often thought about this when you pick a course at a university, right? You pick engineering and you have to pick which one. I think I like to tell people that once you pick something, that doesn't mean you're in it forever. You can choose to try something out, give it a go. If you're unhappy, change, move. The world is becoming more flexible so that people do change what they're doing quite often and quite quickly. And the more that's possible, the more chances you'll have at finding the thing that you like doing the most, I think.
Excellent. Yuma.
Well, Elizabeth, I will answer the question the same way that you did, literally, because I think, and it's literally what I did. I remember when I had was the final year of my master, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I just did exactly what you did regarding, you know, what I'm good at, what I enjoy, and the one last thing I will add, the one last thing I'll add, especially as you get older, is also looking at what fulfills you, because you can enjoy something and you can be good at it, but I think especially doing something that every single day, because sometimes things are going to get difficult in the career or, you know, into the path that you choose. It has to be something that brings you joy and make you give sense to your life. So I think that is also really important to keep that in mind. Maybe not when people are so young, but at a certain age, it's very important to also speak about fulfillment when we're looking for our careers and choosing pathways within engineering or careers in general.
That's so right. The fulfillment, you know, do something you enjoy, feel fulfilled, and it won't feel like work. And Sophie, do you have any?
Sorry, I think you cut out.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So what would you suggest to inspire young people how to pick a career in engineering?
I think you mean Divya, right? Just answered.
Yeah, I can take that. Don't worry, Sophie. I think I was in the same boat. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. And like Sophie, I kind of went into engineering because I liked maths and physics and I wanted something practical. But the one thing that I would say is, yeah, like that's so good that engineering's that wide. That means that there's so much opportunity. Had you have asked me when I finished uni if I'd be doing what I'd be doing today, I didn't even know there was such a thing that I could do with an engineering degree. And the thing that I tell people the most is that just keep doing what you enjoy doing. And what you'll find is that I refer to it as like stepping stones. You'll just keep taking different steps in that direction. You don't need to know the full end game. That's fine. And then often you'll look back and you'll be able to pull like a string of a common theme through. And once you found sort of, as has been mentioned by it right now, is like that passion and what you enjoy, then you can start doing a bit more of it. And also, I think, yeah, it's fine to change. Like that's the whole point of life. Like diversity is the spice of life. So definitely give everything a go.
Definitely. My Q&A has become a bit weird. Okay. I was obviously clicked on something. So let me just go to the next one. So bear with me. How did you know what you wanted to do with your career if you didn't know what you wanted to do, if that makes sense? Divya, do you want to take this, because you were just saying something about that?
I didn't know. I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I first started engineering, I thought I'd be a geotechnical engineer for life. I did it for about 4 years and just decided, actually, you know what, I've finished it, I've done it. I want to do something more. And I did something more. But when, you know, I didn't map it out. I didn't say, oh, you know, this is exactly what I'm going to do. It was kind of like, had to talk around with some other people and was just like, this is what I like doing. This is what I enjoy doing. What do you think I could do? And someone's like, oh, why don't you try this project? And I was like, I tried it. And then that's pretty much how it went. Then somebody else said, oh, I've got this I think you'd really enjoy. And I think the key for me is don't be afraid to say no. As much as I'm a big advocate for saying yes to every opportunity, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Just be really vocal with what you want and what you don't want. And that will help shape you to a path. And I'm a big believer in you do not need to know where the end product is. As long as you know what you like to do, you're going to get somewhere. And it's okay if you don't have it mapped out, because I'm a big believer in life and career is not a straight path at all. It's okay to take swerves, turns, go back on yourself, go forward, etc.
Absolutely. Yunma, how did you know what you wanted to do if you didn't know what you wanted to do at the beginning?
This is such an interesting question. First, I will agree again with Divya about, going with the flow. It's funny because the way I never intended to start a business. And I really I always thought the opposite. I always stay away from business for many different reasons. But I had gotten to a crossroad in my career where exactly what I was saying, I knew I could succeed as a scientist. If I wanted, I could climb the ladder, but it didn't fulfill me actually writing papers. It didn't, and I was walking away, as you go as an academic, you have to walk away from all of the lab work. You have to go more into the management and how creating a group and all of those things just really didn't brought me any joy. So I literally went through a phase before even starting this idea. And it's funny at that time that my idea was also in my head, but I couldn't really, I did not really know why it was important to me until I actually connected emotionally to the whole idea about the experiences of the little girl I used to look after. But one thing that really allowed me to make my choice between entrepreneurship and actually academia was actually that entrepreneurship was bringing me something that academia was not bringing me. And because I had realized, I went through this phase where I was searching for what I wanted to do. And I realized that everything that I did that brought me joy had to do with empowering people. So being part of, women in engineering group in the university, doing things about equality, diversity, about, ethnic minority, having a dance class of only women, it was all about human being and empowerment and well-being. And so that's why I actually chose the business, because I felt like through the business, I could actually do more of what I like, which is the empowerment by allowing people to actually have a great experience and feel good about the hair. But also the dream here is to give 5% of the profit to coach young people for them to actually find themselves. So once again, I go back to purpose, because I could do science if I wanted, but I just didn't feel, it just didn't bring me the joy and the excitement I wanted to have in my life every single morning.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't know you were also dedicating some of your profit to other people. That's just absolutely terrific. And Sophie, how did you know what you wanted to do when you didn't know what you wanted to do?
I gave things a go. I think that's one of my mottos. So just give it a go. If I like the sound of something, try it out and see how it goes. And if you don't like it anymore, you don't do it anymore. I think one of the important things for me was also knowing what I didn't want to do. That helps to know, right, I really don't want to be a doctor dealing with, I don't know, the idea of being a doctor just terrifies me, but I'm a biomedical engineer, so I'm doing the engineering side of what, a medic might do. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I've had a very varied career. I started out failing my law degree, and then thank goodness the legal profession said, and then I went into administration, and because I was so interested in IT, they asked me to install the internet and email on all the computers at work in 1996. And a friend of mine who was born 3 years before that said, "You mean computers didn't come with that already on?" Like, no. I had to teach people how to use email. And from there, I then got into IT, and I found I was very good at explaining the business requirements to the IT department. And when the IT department came out very technically, I was able to translate that into information for the business. And then I moved into working with Capita and doing really, really large-scale databases for local authorities. And then I was doing getting my degree in computing and found systems thinking, which introduced me to aerospace and engineering. And through the trade union movement and the political movement that I was involved in, I ended up working at Rolls-Royce. And that was in my mid-30s, late 30s, and that really launched me into engineering. But I've been able to use all of the things I picked up along the way in terms of, I remember working at one company that went bankrupt because they'd focused all their money on a big IT project in Singapore, and then the Singapore government refused to pay them. And what happened was the company went bankrupt and their software then became available to their creditors. And so the Singapore government picked it up for a song. And that taught me that as a business, you've got to diversify, because anyone could force you out of business just to get your product very cheaply. And that was really useful. And learning, I did a lot of committee work in politics, and learning that's really helped me with governance and helping change management. So I think you have to kind of look at not just your engineering career, but other aspects of your life and your experiences to help balance that out. So it seems that our final speaker is unable to join us. So we're just going to carry on with this for the next 10 minutes, if that's okay. And we've had a question here from Kane Abanami. How can change be facilitated for someone with an engineering background, but not working in engineering, particularly, especially when there aren't enough female allies in the workplace? So, Divya, do you want to address this? I mean, I can speak about this as well, because WES does a lot to support particularly women with engineering qualifications or backgrounds who want to get back into the industry.
Yeah, I honestly think it's places like WES, it's people advocating for each other. And I think it's so important to create cultures where people aren't afraid and they're allowed to speak up about their concerns, and we can actually support them. Especially, you know, if you've done the degree, for example, you've got that background and you want to come back in, regardless of what the reason for the career break is, whenever you do take that time out, I think you learn so many different skills. Like just because you're not at your desk every day doesn't mean you're not learning. For example, I found when colleagues have gone traveling and they've come back in, they come back with such diverse views on how the world is. They have such different sensitivities for what people are going through in life, how you can potentially support them, and bringing in fresh ideas. And I think it's just really important that we keep the conversation flowing. We keep this as an awareness, an agenda item of something that we need to tackle to do more, because honestly, like, the world is facing some of the biggest challenges that we've ever faced. And the only way we're going to solve it is diversity, because everybody understands life, understands what they're doing, etc., from a different viewpoint. And we need to harness all of that if we want to get any chance of solving any of it.
Absolutely, that diversity from all over the world, from different experiences, is really important. And I think that's the only way that we're going to create and going to address some of these challenges. Yuma, how do you feel that we can help people with engineering backgrounds who are not working in engineering?
I think it's simply remembering one thing that all of the speaker here, and I'm sure yourself, will be speaking about the importance of multidisciplinary, and having collaboration with people with different background, different field, and so on and so forth. So I think if we can hold on to remembering that actually the diversity in knowledge and experience actually bring wealth into the workplace, it's a fantastic thing. I will also say is remembering that engineering is about problem solving at the end of the day. And I've been speaking a lot about creativity and not necessarily saying innovation, because I've never really thought when people spoke about innovation, I always felt distant about it. You know, especially in my young age, when I heard innovation or innovator, it didn't make sense to me. When I spoke about creativity, when I spoke about problem solving, straightforward, I could, as a young woman, actually relate to all of those different things. So it's being mindful and remembering that, you know, it's about problem solving, about creativity, so we can remember to be more inclusive into the people who work with, and re-inviting those people that do have the skill and want to get more wealth with the diversity of their own experiences to come back and reach us.
Excellent. And Sophie, you know, you're in a very interesting area of engineering. How do you feel, because it's science, that people could maybe come from engineering to science or from science into engineering?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moving around in our field, and I think it's becoming more and more normal for people from industry to come into academia and the other way around, and from very different backgrounds. Actually, I think it's encouraged. The more places or more things you've done that are different, the more out of the box you think, and the better it is. And I think one of the ways in which you can bring change is also there are lots of opportunities out there to sort of volunteer, right, to help sort of change things, maybe at a lower level in schools or high levels, and it's actually gotten really easy now to get involved, even if you're outside of the engineering fields at the moment.
Absolutely. Now, we at WES, we work with STEM returners. So for anyone, man or woman, who's had a career break from engineering and wants to get back in, and I know of people who've done their degree but never worked in engineering, or people who've gone around the world, or, you know, decided to go into some other field and then come back. STEM returners run these dedicated programs for about 3 months. So when you get taken on, you're usually given a placement in a company, and 94% of people who are placed go on to work in that company. And I'm delighted that 2 women I've interviewed, one was a woman in her 50s who'd come over from Eastern Europe, and another was a younger woman who'd trained, I think, somewhere in Asia. They interviewed for completely different jobs, and I said, well, we've got engineering qualifications, why don't you become engineers? And in the last couple of months, they both emailed me to say they got in touch with STEM returners and they're now working in engineering. So I love that, particularly this woman who'd come from somewhere in Eastern Europe, who had, you know, about 20 years ago and hadn't been in engineering all this time. And there are other companies who've acknowledged that when you start working with a company, it doesn't always mean that for the first 3 months you're going to know what's going on. And this is, you know, you could be in an engineering job and change jobs tomorrow, and it's still going to take you 3 to 6 months before you understand what's going on in your new role. So there are companies like Ingenuity who are working with those to say, well, if that's the case, why don't you take on somebody who may not have been in engineering in the last few years? Because, you know, you're going to have to train them up anyway. And I think that's just brilliant, that we need as companies to look at what people's potential is as well as what they've done. And when I re-interview people for WES, when I do look at career breaks, you know, they're not as important as people think they are. You know, it's like, oh, I've spent 3 years raising children. That's fantastic, because you're really good at time management, multidisciplinary. You're probably quite fit running after small children, and you're probably brilliant at problem solving, because little kids really do have those problems that you have to get right down into. So we have a question here from Gillian Youngs, Professor Gillian Youngs, who was our speaker earlier on. What kind of mentoring do you do, or do you hope to do in the future, so that you can share your learning in a live way? And I will point out that WES runs the Mentor Set program, which is 20 years old next year, where for £48 if you're a WES member, or £120 if you're not, deliberately priced so that you join WES, it's cheaper. You can actually get a mentor across the UK, and usually someone who's not in your company, because often some of the mentoring that has to be done is about how you're coping in your current organisation. So we do encourage more people to join Mentor Set. So Sophie, do you do mentoring, and what do you hope to do in the future?
Yes, I do a lot of mentoring at 2 different levels, both very young children via sort of events in schools and masterclasses at sort of GCSE A-level at the Royal Institution, sort of encouraging them to, basically exposing them to different types of science and engineering, cool things, to inspire them. And then at the university level, I've got a lot of students that come asking for advice, or that I'm supervising, that really want career advice, and I take a lot of joy out of the mentoring process, I think. I'm planning on keep on doing that, really. I think the important thing is to make sure that you're not, I mean, everything's good, but I think it's really important to try and concentrate on the younger age group, high schools and even lower, to try and make it more normal and make it so that children feel like that's something they can be an engineer.
Absolutely. I just think sometimes, you know, we say you've got to see it to be it. And there are so many young girls who are just not understanding about engineering because we don't teach it. It's not on the telly, it's not in the cartoons. And really, we need to make that more popular for them. Divya.
I do a lot of mentoring, but I do a lot of informal mentoring. I'm a big believer in a mentor. It should be a two-way relationship. So there should be like a connection and a gel whereby they have a open relationship with you and they can discuss any and every single problem. And one of the things that I'd actually add is I've really, really gained from mentoring. Because suddenly I'm aware of problems that I didn't experience, but you know, there's challenges, etc., going on, and I found that it helps me shape like the way I speak to people, how I maybe interact with people, etc., so that I'm more aware and conscious, so that I can help them. And I found that actually that's when you get almost the best collaboration, because you're just so much more aware of their needs. And then in terms of sort of what I want to continue to do with the future is, I used to do mentoring for younger students, which I guess I've fallen away from. I've sort of focused on GCSE and above, all the way into sort of working life. And it would be so nice to start working again with the younger generation to really break that ceiling of, you know, even right now when you pick up like a children's storybook and they have like a rocket, or, you know, what is an engineer? It's always a male. But it'd be nice just to get in and to start breaking that mold.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Yuma, what about you? Have you been mentored? Do you do mentoring?
I have been lucky of having so many different mentors. In all honesty, the mentoring I do is quite informal. I met through my journey, that especially when I was a staff member in academia, and those relationship kind of like developed. But one thing that I would love to, once again, it just go back to the purpose and the dream regarding to this business, is actually coach young people. Because I think when I look back to my own personal journey, having had lots of experiences working in engineering, and, you know, written papers, 2 patents, I didn't really believe in myself. We spoke earlier about imposter syndrome, and so many people speak about that. And I think sometimes those things do happen because we actually don't know ourselves, and we don't know our value, and we don't actually see the difference that we can make. And that the coaching space has been really a space where I got to know myself. And I often say, like, if you live in Venice and you come here, people give you gold. And if you don't know the value of gold, how are you supposed to appreciate it? So it's the same thing for ourselves. If we don't know ourselves, we can't really appreciate it when we enter spaces, whether it's at work and so on and so forth. So what I want to do is much more into the self with young people, into more actually helping them discovering who they are and unlocking their own potential. So that's pretty much where I would love to be in a couple of years, and doing it at a big scale with actually hiring different coaches to work with the young people. But I'm not doing much mentoring at this stage.
Well, you're very busy launching your new product, but I love that as well. I mean, I always think of imposter syndrome as a check against recklessness, that those of us who do suffer from it and who do question ourselves, it encourages us to check in with everybody else and say, I've got this idea, is it a good thing? And that's probably good, because you don't want to take everybody with you and send them all off a cliff. And I think that, so whenever I have imposter syndrome and I'm thinking, am I capable, can I really do this? Then actually it's just a little signal for me to check in that I'm not striding ahead without support from other people. And I think that makes it much easier to understand. Now, we've had some fabulous stuff in the chat. Bedtime stories for young engineers, search that on YouTube, a great way to show the under fires what engineers do. Sarah Pye from Heathrow Airport has said, They have an apprenticeship scheme open to mature engineering apprentices, looking for those who may have studied engineering but never had a role actively in engineering to join their fast track scheme. And I've popped her LinkedIn profile into the chat, so you can reach out to Sarah and say if you're interested, and she'll put you in touch with the right people. In fact, their apprenticeship scheme's been running 45 years. Still got a way to go to reach 103 though. I'm so proud that we're so old and that we've been continuing. And when I came on board with WES in 2018, I really wanted to focus on the future, because the women who founded us 103 years ago simply wanted to be engineers. They happen to make a lot of tremendously wonderful history on the way. And I want that for all of our members, that, you know, come and join us and we will help you to fulfill your engineering career potential, and we'll help in engineering institutions to be more inclusive. And along the way, I think we're all going to make some fantastic history. And I'm delighted that we've been joined by these three wonderful WE50 winners. One of the 50 for 2022, one of 300 that we've recognised in the last 6 years. And I think these young women are going to go on and make some fabulous history. I'm really looking forward to meeting all three of you. I hope you're going to be there in person at the afternoon tea, which is on the 14th of July. Sadly, because of the rail disruption in the UK, we had to postpone it. And also, sadly, because I'm going on holiday on Monday, that's why it's in July, because you've got to wait for me. However, it's been absolutely joyful listening to you talk. I'm so delighted. Congratulations on your win. Let me just have one final quick look on Twitter. Let's see if we're still trending at number one. Honestly, I can't believe I don't have this open, constantly refreshing it. So if I have a quick look here, and trending in the UK, number one INWED 2022. So we've been doing that since 11:15 this morning, and hopefully that will continue today. There's lots more activities I'm sure you'll find on our INWED webpage. You can see, keep tweeting out all of your experiences, and thank you to everyone from around the world for joining us. And if you look in the handout section of this webinar, you can download the winners slides for the WE50. So if I just keep talking for a little bit, so you can all go to the handouts page and download, you just have to click on that and click download, and we'll make that available afterwards as well. So once again, thank you again for joining me and for joining the Women's Engineering Society for International Women in Engineering Day 2022. It's been a fabulous time, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.